this is my review of Miitopia. Okay, so when I first saw this game come out like a year ago, I didn't think much of it. I didn't think it looked interesting. Then I actually picked it up and I was like, holy shit, this game's amazing. Yeah, but pretty much it went a full 180 and now I'm addicted to this game rather than not thinking it was interesting. And this game is interesting in many different ways because it's probably one of, if not the best RPG I've played in a while. It's pretty good, and I recommend picking it up. But I will just I do want to point out that there will be spoilers in this review because I will be going through major story elements and all that. So if you don't want to hear any story element spoilers and all that, then click off the video, go watch something else. If you, for whatever reason, don't care, then this video is for you. Okay, so this game basically starts off in the world of Miitopia, hence the name of the game. And apparently it is a spin-off of the Tamagotchi series that's been going around with the Miis that you can romance and all that stuff. Apparently it's a spin-off of that. I didn't know that when I first started playing the game, but it doesn't really matter because it's not relevant. So, set in the world of Miitopia, Miitopia is supposed to be this peaceful place. Everything is happy and sunshine and rainbows and all that good stuff. It's a happy place where everybody can come and be friends. And then it doesn't last that long because immediately the main villain, the Dark Lord, shows up and starts stealing people's faces and sticking them onto the wildlife and turning them into monsters. And that's where you come in, because the main character is your Mii and everybody else is a side character that you basically get to pick and control. So you first figure it out when you're attacked by a rock moth and flee into a nearby town where the Dark Lord attacks and steals almost everybody's faces except for one mother who wants you to go save her son and gives you a lucky charm, which just so happens to have a guardian spirit residing within it, who I mean Deus Ex Machina and all that. So he gives you powers that you can use to fight the monsters and repel the Dark Lord's forces, which is pretty successful because he gives you 6 off the bat, and throughout your journey you get three additional party members, each that can equip a different class. So as you go through the region and free everybody's faces, you eventually meet with the mayor of the town that you were in, who gives you a letter of acceptance and all that to get into the castle to talk to the king and bring up the situation to him. And at first the king is dismissive of your idea. By the way, he's a big fat guy with a heart of gold. And when I mean fat, I mean really fat. He has 2 guards specifically in tune with the whole, I have to carry this guy around. That's the whole point. They're supposed to carry him around. Anyway, the king initially dismisses your claims until his face gets stolen and you return it to him by defeating the monster it's attached to. After which he recommends that you go talk to the princess, who points you in the direction of her true love. And from here it's a bit of a love triangle because she's supposed to marry this one guy, but she's in love with this other guy, and it's kind of an arranged marriage on the other end. And she asks you to go find her beloved, the guy who she actually likes, who is trying to defend the kid you saved earlier from a monster and failing miserably until you face off against it and easily dispatch it with your newfound friends and all that. And he heads back to the castle to see the princess, and the king is a bit dismissive of their relationship because he says, you know, you really shouldn't be hanging out with this guy. You are married after all. You are going to get married to this one other guy. And then the king asks you to retrieve the other guy, And you immediately find out that this prince that she's supposed to marry isn't a very nice dude. He's a coward, he's selfish, he's greedy, he's on his high horse. He's just not a good dude all around. He's very obnoxious, and he doesn't even help in battle. One of the mechanics in this game is that you can have people who aren't actually part of your party help you fight. You can recruit extra characters to help you fight. This guy does nothing. He's about as beneficial to fighting as gargling liquid nitrogen is to your health. That's how bad he is at fighting. He just stands there and scoffs at the enemy when you first meet him. And as soon as the noble son figures this out and realizes that this guy isn't a nice dude, gets into a fight with him, and the king requests that you go get a calming fruit to calm everybody down, because he doesn't want everybody fighting. It's a family show. We can't have people fighting and stirring up trouble. So you go into the nearby forest to get some calming fruit. You come back, and the princess's face has been stolen, and you and your friends are tasked with going to retrieve it. And during all of this, the king also finds out that the prince isn't a very nice dude, because he sees the prince run off and cower behind the couch cushions while the noble son goes off to fight the monster. And sure enough, and doesn't have any actual powers or combat merit to speak of. So naturally, when you go to actually fight the boss with the princess's face attached, naturally you watch him get battered and bruised as you walk up. And you do defeat him, return the princess's face, and then the king agrees to let them see each other and calls off the arranged marriage, much to the prince's chagrin, and he goes back home to cry and sulk. And you actually do see them get married in the end credits. The princess and the noble son. I figured I should bring that up because it wasn't very clear of how I said it. And afterward you go to the region of next door, but on your way there, the Dark Lord, realizing that who doesn't want you meddling in his plans, steals your friends away and steals your powers. So you have to pick a completely new class, but the Guardian Spirit actually gives you more to choose from. He gives you 3 new classes this time, which you can choose from. And after you do that, you go into the kingdom of next door, where the great sage, who you had met in the previous chapter, but he didn't exactly do much, but he does develop a kind of mentorship relationship with the main character, which is you. He brings up that he lost a lamp with a powerful genie inside, and that you need to help him find it. And the prince actually beats you to it and accidentally releases him, thinking he's going to get a wish, but the genie is a jerk and just runs off and steals somebody's treasure and hides in a cave. And so you have to go after him. You try and capture the genie in the lamp after reaching him, but the genie says that he's learned his lesson and wants you to let him go, which you do, because you need to progress the story. And he goes back to the town, and that's when everybody's faces get stolen again. And you have to go back and retrieve everybody's faces, the majority of which are in the Great Pyramid to the north. So you go into the pyramid. He's turned everybody into boss monsters, and you defeat them. And the genie, realizing that he didn't realize what it was to have something important stolen from him until his face actually got stolen from him, decides to become a better dude and turn his life around, which is a pretty heartwarming story. And then you get your friends stolen again and your powers are sealed away again. It happens. And so after this, you go into the realm of the Fae, which is basically the land of the fairies, where everybody is a fairy, every single person. And they also introduced my least favorite enemy in the game, which is, I'm not making this up, the Twerky. I'm not making this up. There's a turkey that's twerking, and it's got a face on its butt. It's disturbing. I'm not kidding. I mean, I like a good pun as much as the next guy, but that's taking it a little too far. you know you failed when that pun makes me cringe. And I don't really cringe much, so that should tell you a lot. But yeah, afterwards you head to the village in the center of the region where the youngest Fab Fairy recruits you in helping rescue her 2 older sisters, which you do, and they open the gate for you to get to the next area, except that they accidentally let the Dark Lord into the region, and he steals everybody's faces, and you have to rescue the youngest Fab Fairy now, and everybody has to actually work together to free the fairy. I can't speak apparently. And you do it, and then you actually get to the next region so that you can actually find your way through the lava moat, and then your friends get stolen again. And surprisingly, you're powerful enough to resist getting your power sealed away this time. And now you can basically go through with the class you had last time, which for me was unfortunately the tank, because the tank is terrible and you should never use it. Even though it's a very good offensive ability, it's not very good with keeping your friends happy. That's all I'm gonna say. I'll probably do a video on why the tank is terrible at some point in the future, but don't use the tank if you pick up Miitopia. Unless you have confidence that you can actually make your friends back rather quickly, you should probably avoid this one. So yeah, you go through the region where you meet up with the Great Sage again, who has found 3 of your friends who have gotten their faces stolen, and he agrees to team up with you and help you free your friends. You free the first batch of friends who are attached to various boss monsters. Then you free the second batch of friends who are attached to basically Cerberus. Yeah, Dog of the Underworld. Don't know why he's in here. I don't really care. It makes for an interesting boss fight, because each head has a different attack that he can use, which is cool. One of them, quite literally, because there's ice powers. Yeah, I think ice, fire, and lightning were the 3 attacks, which is actually how you get the hyper sprinkles, which you can use in addition to all the other sprinkles you got up to this point, because that's a game mechanic you can have, having sprinkles which give you health, more MP, 1 revive, 1. There's also a safe spot. I'll go over the battle mechanics later, but yeah, you unlock the hyper crystals, defeat the Cerberus monster with ease, free all your friends, get 6 of your friends back. Then the Great Sage leaves you because he's like, okay, you have enough firepower, I don't think you need me anymore. And sure enough, you do have 7 people you can play as now, so. And then finally you invade the Dark Lord's castle, where after freeing the remaining 3 friends that you had, you face off against a literal dragon who becomes important in the story, remember him, and eventually the Dark Lord, and after a hard fought battle you actually defeat him. Now, normally this is where the game would end, but no, you have more of this to do. You have to because turns out the Dark Lord wasn't the actual big bad, but was actually possessed by the big bad, and possesses the Great Sage who was trying to defend you because he came in to congratulate you, and the Dark Curse was actually trying to attack you, but then the Great Sage gets possessed, and now the Dark Lord has his original powers along with the Great Sage's powers, and dubs himself the Darker Lord and goes off to his castle, which is now somewhere else. And after seeing all of this, the dragon decides to help you figure out where you're supposed to go. So he takes you to the Traveler's Hub, which is basically the hub world of the game, which is interesting because normally you unlock the hub worlds pretty early in the game, but in this case it's a lot later in the game, during the second half. And during this, you're trying to find out where the Dark Lord's new castle is, and after traveling to the strange world of Peculia, which is basically just a clusterfuck of everything, the Powdered Peaks, which is basically an ice world, and Nimbus, which is a futuristic city in the sky, It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I don't really care because this game's amazing. You head into the sky. After going to all three, you eventually find out where the Dark Lord's castle is. The Darker Lord has built a tower using monsters and is residing in the northern corner of Nimbus. And the door's locked with a lock that looks a lot like a face. You have to collect the different jewels in the shape of the face to get through. And you eventually do that, get into the tower, and the Darker Lord reveals that he has snatched up faces from some familiar friends, and is basically like, okay, get through all these and try to come toward me. Which you do, starting with the former Dark Lord, who was a factory worker who got possessed because he heard whispers and promises of power from the Dark Curse, and reveals that during all of this, yes, he was completely sentient, and yes, he does regret everything he's done, and you can have him as a temporary party member. He's better than the Prince, but not by much. His primary attack does 4 to 6 damage, but he has an unlimited supply of magic bananas that heal you, because he worked in a factory before all this. As I explained, he made magic bananas to heal you. He made HP bananas and all that good stuff. And throughout all of this, you find out that the Dark Lord has bitter hatred and resentment for all of this, and you never really find out why until after you beat the main boss. So yeah, after this, throughout all this, he reveals what was like being the Dark Lord, and why he regrets it so much, and how he was in his body, but it was kind of an out of body experience, because he saw everything through the Dark Lord's perspective, but he couldn't actually control his own body, and everybody was being turned into monsters against his will, and he had no way of dealing with it. But yeah, eventually you do free all your friends again, who have been upgraded into more powerful versions of the bosses they were possessing before, and get to the top of the tower, where you find out that the Dark Lord has made a new world out of all the faces he's stolen, which is a little disturbing, to be perfectly honest. And you go through, and face off against the Darker Lord, who basically uses his powers to absorb all the faces in his new world to become his true form, the Darkest Lord. And here, you need to use all 10 of your party members to defeat him. You have to use 3 on his left hand, 3 on his right hand, and the remaining 4 on his face. And after defeat, let me just say, the Darkest Lord is probably the coolest design for a boss I've seen. He looks like basically a giant coin with a sun around it, with 2 giant hands. It looks cool. And that's pretty much the whole motif, is that he's a giant coin, because he spawns coin-based enemies, because he steals the faces of the original 3 friends that defeated each hand, creating 6 enemies that he can spawn, which he can only do 6 times, interestingly enough. Although, not really, because, yeah, he can only summon as many as the faces that he's stolen. And then from the second phase, he uses his super attack to whittle you down to 1 health, which also, interestingly enough, can only damage you if you have full health. If you have 1 health, it can't do anything if you've already been hit by it. And then after you take it down, the Great Sage actually imprisons the Dark Curse and reveals that the Dark Curse actually was a regular me who became upset with the fact that nobody wanted to be his friend, cast away his face, and basically faded into a spirit form, which is what the Dark Curse is now. And from here, you can choose what ending you get. You can either break the curse, or save him. I recommend saving him, because if you do that, you can actually access post-game stuff. If you destroy him, you can't do any of that, and you have to fight the boss again to get that option. So I would recommend doing the former option, not the latter one. So yeah, this game is amazing, because the battle mechanic is essentially, the primary mechanic is friendship. The higher your friendship level is, the more perks you have. And in addition, you also have friendship perks, which in addition to friendship perks, you also have personality perks, which can either help or hurt you depending on what perks you have. For example, the laid back one combined with the tank is pretty much the worst, because I picked the laid back one because I'm a pretty laid back dude. I don't know if anybody else would agree with that, but yeah, I'm a pretty chill dude if you've got to know me. So yeah, combining those two probably isn't the best idea, but each one has its own perks and stuff. And in addition to this, you also have level up, the normal level up system, which maxes out at 50, and you have equipment which can increase your battle mechanics and attacks and power and all that. And you also can eat food that you find lying around from killing monsters and stuff, which buff your stats to go even higher, up to a max of 99, which makes the tank the slowest. I will explain everything about why the tank is bad, I promise. But yeah, and you also unlock 2 new regions. Galapagos Island, which is based off of the Galapagos Islands, obviously, and New Lumos, which is essentially a boss run type deal, where where there are 8 districts, you have to defeat all 8 bosses in the district, and then this is where the save him thing comes in. The reborn me that you saved actually uses his powers to summon a tower so that you can fight all the bosses in a row. And yeah, that's really it. I mean, there's also a lot of monster variants, and from there you can just spend as much time as you want leveling up your characters and all that, and getting more powerful, getting more buff, getting stronger. Yeah. But yeah, this game's interesting. I recommend picking it up. It's definitely one of my favorites. And yeah, if you like it, if you decide to pick it up, then go pick it up. It's good. I like it. It's amazing. So yeah, if you do decide to pick it up, great. If not, you're missing out. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this review. If you liked it, hit that like and the subscribe button. I could always use a new addition to the Moon Rabbit Army. Also be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!